Hey everyone, Christine I see here and welcome back to our channel. This is a very detailed installation of the insulation for the van, our Ford Transit van. I have to say, Matt went very much into detail. That's why I kept a lot of it intact. Very few I left out. It did take maybe 2 weekends because we put Reflectix, Thinsulate, and all the areas where we did, and also above the headliner. I hope you stay through because Matt at the end of the video gives some really good insights on how much the temperature really changed by adding all this insulation. Stay tuned, comment below if you made it through the end, and I am so grateful that you did, and thank you, and I hope you learned something from this. I'll talk to you at the end.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Christine's channel. Today we're working on the front headliner shelf, removing that. That way we can get to the top of the van. There's a large, metal roof section up there that can use some insulation. Obviously there is the headliner, but that's not insulated, so there's a gap between there. We're going to put some Reflectix insulation up there, glue that up, and then some Thinsulate behind that to add for as much sound deadening and insulation as we can get. There is a limited space. It's not as much insulation as we'll have up here on the ceiling. There's also, I believe, some cavities up front that can be filled with insulation, so we're working on that today. The headliner looks like it should be fairly straightforward. It looks like there's only a few tabs holding it on. The visors have to come off. The front shelf just looks like it's bolted to the top there. All right, let's get started. I'm going to start by removing the visors. There's a little trim piece there. Looks like once you remove that, I'm assuming they're going to find screws underneath, whether they're Torx or whichever. We'll see here in a second. You can see there's just a little trim piece here that covers up this section. I'm assuming it's this side that comes off. Maybe it's the other side. There we go. Is a Phillips? No, Torx. All right, let's get some Torx bits so we can figure that out. What's a Torx bit? T20. Tucks up into place in there, and then one screw through that. Fairly straightforward. One of my favorite sayings, fairly straightforward. Nothing ever is. We can pretend. Pull the other side. Again, you can see there's just a little tab here that goes right up in there, holds it into the headliner. The Torx little screw goes right through here. Now let's figure out, light here needs to come off. Pry tools here. Go. Yep. Those are just kind of standard metal clips holding that in place. A number of connectors in here. Then on the front, this goes in like so. On the front, just have the normal kind of metal clips that a lot of companies use. Slide right in there, snap it in place. This then kind of gets pinned up in the back. Pull these off. A couple of different connectors in there. Let's figure out the headliner. They are regular 8mm. Just a hex head screw. The back one is 8mm. The front one is smaller. Front one is smaller, 7. And then there's these little caps here. I'm suspecting that's where the rest of the screws holding this on are. There's also another little sensor here that looks like it's going to have to get unplugged. It does. So there's 2 sensors connected up top here that are going to have to get unplugged or removed. The headliner can come down. And they just push up into place. Both of them do. That one here, it looks like there's a little tab. Yeah, that one can just be unhooked. The black one, it looks like has to be pulled out of its place. Okay, so we can get a pry bar, a prying tool in to get these out. And these are pretty tight. They look like they're going to get marked up to take them out. I hate to say that. Let's try a smaller screwdriver and see if we can not mark this up terribly getting them out. Nope. What I did is I used the small screwdriver, just get a little enough of a lip to get the pry bar in there, and then it seemed to come out okay. Well, that one came out with just a small screwdriver. Try this next one. Try not to mark these up too much. That one marked a little bit more. If we sand that down, it'll probably smooth back out nicely and you won't be able to tell too much. And it looks like a 7 or 8 millimeter. 7. These look like a 7 millimeter here. Pull these out. Pull these out first. See if that looks like all. Okay. Last couple. Oh, no, one more. It looks like there's one more right here in the middle, holding the top of this up right through there. Okay, let's see if that's it. Yes, it is. Great. Now, headliner. I would assume some clips, like this is underneath the door. The rubber seal for the door. Okay. I'm assuming there's clips here, that's why these indents are here. Take a quick peek here. If you look here, you can see, I'm assuming there's clips underneath here. You can kind of feel there. I'm going to look up there. There's something in the front here, probably on each side, that's holding that in. We'll know here as we start to take it apart. And they are just a kind of a straightforward clip, just a normal body molding clip. Pry bar helps take those out. All right, that's those. I don't see any other up here. Let's see what else is holding it in. Behind this trim here, this trim is holding it in. I'm not sure how far down it comes into that. It doesn't look like very far. I think I can do it without taking that piece off, as long as I can get this loose here, which I can. Got the same thing here, yep. All right, where else is it held on? It feels like it's still held on somewhere. Right there. See this little indent again here. It appears there's another body clip there. Let's see. Here, so. These are the little plastic clips that it has. Again, a fairly standard body molding clip. 3 here, 1 on the front. You can see here now, there's just a large area of metal there. The roof, the slanted part of the roof, that could use some insulation. There's a nice groove up in here that can easily be filled with insulation. All the way here, there's a little cavity here that can be filled with insulation. I'm hoping this connects this cavity here. It looks like you could see it from this cavity here, and it goes forward. I'm not sure if they connect. If they do, that would be nice because I can run some of the wires that I need to run up front here. I need to be able to get, we're gonna mount the rear view camera, side view camera monitor here. We'll also mount the DVR up here and the like. This is the Reflectix I'm using. I'm going to glue it then to the exposed metal along the top here in one large sheet, and then put some insulation behind that. All right, measuring across there, we need 5 foot of the Reflectix. I'm going to kind of just rough it up here, and then we can figure out, trim it as I go. It actually fits up here. at the width it is almost exactly right. Pretty amazing. Actually going to need very little trimming, and this will work out just fine. Just a little bit more. Oh, not much. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Because I'm spraying adhesive, I just covered that with just a little bit of plastic. It's going to be spraying pretty well. And this is pretty well controlled, but I still don't want it to drop down or anything there. The next thing I'm going to do also is I'm going to mark center on my piece here, so when I go back to put it up, it will be easier to put in place for me. Once that gets tacky, I don't want to have to reposition it. I want to be able to put it straight up, one shot. I'm using a 3M74, which is their foam fast. I like this because it is a fairly quick cure time. It gets tacky pretty quick. It's aggressive when it's tacky, so it wants to bond right away. So for these overhead things, it holds up quickly and sets up fast. So that's why I like it. As with pretty much all these contact adhesives, you spray both sides, you wait till it gets tacky. You know it's tacky when you can touch it and it just starts to stick to your finger but doesn't peel off. Finish spraying this part, and then we'll wait for it to get tacky. Okay, like I said, this sets up pretty quick, usually within 30 seconds or so. We can start putting this up. I've got my center lines. I'll mark those two up, like so. We'll keep this up here, because we're going to have to spray another set of that to put the Thinsulate up. But while this is finishing drying, I'm going to go ahead and get that Thinsulate cut. I'm going to leave the plastic in place because I'm going to have to cut the next part, which is a Thinsulate, and then I'm going to have to spray adhesive that in place also. Since I'm going to spray some more adhesive, I'll leave the plastic up for another few minutes. Now, Thinsulate, that's what we're going to use for the next layer. Now, the Thinsulate here is a fairly thin Thinsulate. It's not the same thickness we're going to use here. I don't actually know what this thickness was when it was ordered. This is actually left over from a project before. But because there's only so much room between the headliner there, I'm going to use this. I might use actually 2 separate layers to get a little bit more insulation there. But we're going to put the first one up and see how thick it looks. I've got the adhesive sprayed up. We're waiting, like I said, about 15-30 seconds. You can see it's still a little wet, so it still kind of picks up when you touch it. So it's not quite ready. To where when you touch it, it's tacky, but won't pull off. Then you know it's ready. And I should have put gloves on the first time. I got a little lucky that went up without making a mess, but this stuff does get on your fingers and hard time getting it to come off right away because it dries very quickly. Still picking up just a little bit. It's close. So even just checking it there, it sticks to the finger well enough. It's hard to get off. A little brake cleaner will take off most anything, including that glue. And we're getting close. There we go. Okay. Now it's just to where it's tacky, but it doesn't tend to peel up very much. It wants to stay there. You can feel it getting tacky, but you only get a little trace coming off. Same thing here. I marked the center so I know where I'm at. This piece here I left a little longer because I'm going to stuff it into this front gap here. Next layer done. I do think I am going to add one more layer. Got the last piece sprayed up and ready to go. This time I didn't spray the bottom of it with as much adhesive, so that way when I tuck it in, it'll go in there. It doesn't need to be stuck at the bottom. It doesn't need to be adhered at the bottom as well, because that's being pushed into that gap there, and that'll help hold that closed. Again, I've got my center marked. I'm glad I wore gloves because this time it wasn't as easy. I ended up getting quite a bit on me. Here we go. Now I'm going to cut some smaller pieces. I'm going to put them in these openings. I'm going to stuff some more down in here. Well, maybe I won't. That's actually pretty full through there. I might be able to get a little in there. but don't push it too tight because then you lose the air gap. That's the point of this. So I'm going to fill these sides here. They actually got pretty good bit of room front to back there. I'm going to fill those. Do that next. I've cut some small triangles and I put them into the corners there. Again, don't stuff it in too tight because you need some air gap. Then I have some smaller strips here now that I'm going to push down into the front to kind of fill that extra little bit of cavity that goes forward this way. Alright, see I filled that space down into that little gap there, and again into that space. 2 layers of the Thinsulate, 1 layer of Reflectix. Well, that's done. I'm curious to see how much difference that'll make in the temperature in here. Not that it's going to make a huge difference because it's not a huge area compared to the rest of the van. But it is an area that was uninsulated at all except for the headliner. I'm curious to see with that big of an area whether that'll make a difference in here. Right now, with just this small little space heater running, we're able to keep it about 10 degrees warmer than the outside. We've been watching that fairly closely. I'm curious to see now whether that makes it any difference whatsoever. Then we'll add a layer of Reflectix to the ceiling, and then I'm curious to see how much difference that makes. Then a layer of Thinsulate, and again, so forth. It'll be nice to see how much of a difference each layer makes. How are we doing, everyone? So we're putting up more Reflectix on the ceiling now. Same type of thing. We cut the small pieces. We're using the 3M74. Obviously coat both sides, and then we're putting that up here. We've got a couple pieces up already to here and over here, and then we've got the rest of them cut, and we're going to start spraying and mounting them up here. Okay, now we're working on putting in a layer of Thinsulate. This Thinsulate we have, I'm going to start with that front part here and glue up a couple layers here. See how that goes. We did switch to the 3M90 for this part. We did actually for part of the Reflectix also. It has a very high strength bond. It actually sets faster than I thought it would. So I think it works just as well, or probably even a little bit better than the 74. Alright, the Thinsulate is now up on the roof. Waiting for these 2 little sections here to tack up, and that's all I have left. I switched to the 3M90, which is our high strength spray adhesive. When I first read that, I thought it tacked up in like 10 minutes before it would get to where you put it up, so I thought it would take too long. It doesn't. It takes a minute or two. Not quite as fast as the 74, but it's supposed to have better holding strength. That's why I used it. Waiting for the 3M74 to get tacky on the Thinsulate layer here. You can see I've got the layer of Reflectix up on the larger panel there. It's almost tacky. I've got all the ceiling panels done here, and then I've started stuffing some of those also. Continuing on with the insulation, we have the large, where the rear window would be if you had that done, the ceiling all done, and then we're starting on the sides here. I'm also going to insulate the wheel wells. Because those right now you can feel the cold on those, I'm going to do those here real quick and see how much that helps. Also, what I'm using for that then is insulation, sound deadening and insulation that you would normally have underneath a hood or inside the car. You line the floor with it. We actually intend to take out the front mat and line the floor up front there with, but it also offers then some insulation because it has some thickness to it, but it offers sound deadening. Has its own adhesive back on it. That's what we're going to use there. I have the one strip set up. It'll fit, and it is long enough that it'll wrap all the way around to the top. I'm going to have to cut a little wedge in there and use that to cover this part that won't be covered when it's wrapped. Okay, here we go. Some insulation, some sound deadening. The wheel wells obviously get a lot of road noise because debris is bouncing up on them. This makes that much quieter and help with their heat a little bit. Now we'll repeat on the other side. The wheel well are done on both sides now. What I also did then is on the inside, the wheel well on the inside there, I put the same sound deadener, and then down through the bottom I put some in there also, because you will get some road noise off the bottom of the van there as things bounce up. Same thing on the other side, all the way down here to the front. Now we're going to cut the Thinsulate and fill those cavities with Thinsulate. This has been going pretty well. A couple things that I've noted when doing this. Number one, the odor is very strong. We can't have the windows open just because of the fact that it's below freezing outside. So you have to take a lot of breaks. You do a little bit, get out of here, wait for it to dry, otherwise it's just too much. So be safe on that part. Beyond that, as far as the temperature goes, before any insulation at all, we keep it about 10 degrees warmer in here than outside. It is just above freezing outside. Normally that would mean it would be 44 in here. With just the Reflectix layer, as a matter of fact, then, it was about 2 degrees warmer than that, so I could keep it about 12 degrees warmer. And then with the insulation on the roof here, we could actually keep it 14 degrees warmer. So actually then it's closer to 50 in here when it's just over freezing outside. I'm curious now to see how much adding these wall panels, and then we'll do the upper walls here next to see how much that makes a difference. I bet we can keep it 15 to even 20 degrees warmer in here with just that little bit of insulation, not filling every little gap, but just the bigger panels. It's pretty interesting. And you know, again, the Thinsulate goes up pretty well. We debated on putting the white side out or the white side towards the wall. I ended up putting then the white side towards the wall so the black side was out. Partially because that way you don't catch it on anything. You're actually, when we work in here later to run the rest of the wiring, we're not likely to catch then on the insulation itself. But also I noticed that the black layer here peeled off of the white insulation pretty easily. So if that's the only thing adhering it to the roof or to the walls, I'm afraid it will peel apart easier. So I ended up then spraying it and putting the white side towards the wall. Even though it doesn't give you as much contact room as the black, because the black's actually flatter and smoother than the white surface, but because of the fact that I think it peels apart, to peel apart the layer of the Thinsulate itself was tougher than peeling just then the facing layer off. So that's why we decided to put white on the outside of the van, leaving the black on the inside. Lighting wise, actually it's better to put the white on the inside because then you could see better, but only while we're working. It wouldn't matter so much. Once we have the walls up, they'll be covered anyway.
Hey, did you make it towards the end? Let me know. Comment below that you made it. Just another insight. After all the insulation is said and done, including the wheel wells and all that stuff, Matt did say, and we've had a couple of cold spells the last couple of weeks, the van has actually stayed a 25-degree difference from outside compared to inside. So all that extra insulation does help. I'd be curious once we get it out on the road, sound-wise, how it is in the back. But right now, the van is still in the garage, and we're gonna keep it safe because the next video would be electrical. That might be maybe a week or two from now because we're still working on it currently. So now you're in real time, and we'll keep you updated on the van. But thank you so much for being here, and give Matt a bunch of kudos because I swear he's just doing an amazing job. But I hope you really get some good insights. Thank you and love you. Bye.